Almost 20 minutes in, we pick up Jack 7 suited in the big blind. The player under the gun raises to 15. Our hand is somewhat on the cusp between calling and folding. I'm not a fan of folding suited cards when we're facing a single raise and we're closing the action. I call for 10 more. We're heads up, out of position. The flop comes Jack 7-6 with 2 diamonds. We've got top 2 pair. I check to the pre-flop raiser. He's never been a fan of keeping money. He bets 20. There are lots of bad turns that can decrease the value of our hand or make it tougher for us to get paid in case our opponent has something like pocket queens. For that reason, we're not going to slow play. We check raise to 75. We want to get as much money in on the flop as we can. Under the gun calls. It seems likely that he has diamonds or 1 pair at best. The turn is the 4 of clubs. Some straights get there, but the opponent would have to have 8-5 or 5-3, which are 2 holdings that he should never have after raising under the gun, and especially not after calling a check raise on the flop, so we don't need to worry about being beat if we were ahead previously. We need to continue charging flush draws and pile in money. I bet 200. Any diamond on the river could give our opponent the best hand, or keep him from wanting to call bets if he thinks we're currently bluffing with a diamond draw. Broadway cards won't be good for us because the opponent could either make 2 pair or a set, and any card below a jack that doesn't pair the board could potentially give the opponent a straight, or make him worried that we'll have a straight so he won't want to pay us off. Hopefully the opponent jams. He doesn't. He calls instead. This could make for some tricky situations on the river. The dealer puts out the ace of hearts. It isn't my favorite card to see. We could definitely be up against a hand like aces, ace-jack, jack-6, or ace-4 diamonds. All those combos have taken the lead against us. There's still plenty of hands that we're beating, but it's tougher to get value out of those hands. I bet 350. Maybe we can get a call from a hand like ace-king, ace-queen, or ace-10 of diamonds. Perhaps the opponent could try to bluff catch us with pocket kings or king-jack type of hand as well. Ultimately, the player folds. We show him that we likely had the best hand the whole way. He lets us know that he had a million outs with 8-6 of diamonds. He flopped a flush draw with bottom pair, then picked up a gut shot straight draw to go along with it on the turn. It's fortunate that he didn't hit. We're up early on the session. Moments later, we pick up ace-queen of hearts under the gun +1. The straddle's on. I raise to 30. The player who ran the unsuccessful bluff attempt against us is out for revenge. He 3-bets to 100 from middle position. The opponent's name is Alfonso. He's got a big stack, and he likes to swing it around. Ace-queen is a bit of a vulnerable hand after opening from early position and getting almost immediately 3-bet. We could be up against other high pocket pairs like aces, kings, or queens. We'd also be dominated if we're up against ace-king. One last possible bad scenario is that we're playing out of position against ace-queen. It's much easier for the in-position pre-flop aggressor to steal pots against the same hand when neither of us make a pair. Since we can rely on our hearts, I call for 70 more. It's heads up. The dealer puts out Jack 10 deuce with 2 clubs, wrong suit, denomination, and everything. The only thing going for us is that we've got a gutter to Broadway. With clubs out there, we have 3 pure outs to the nuts. I check. I expect the opponent to have hands that have us in terrible shape like overpairs, sets, and ace-king, so I don't even really want to hit a queen, and I don't feel great about hitting an ace either. The opponent puts out a tiny c-bet of 75. Folding is reasonable with so few clean outs, but the other part of me is saying we've got 2 overs, a gutter, and we're getting nearly 4-1 pot odds. I also don't think that the opponent would bet this small with a made hand on an extremely connected flop with lots of draws present. Something seems off. It's possible that he 3-bet pre-flop with a hand like ace-4 or ace-5 suited, has taken a stab after bricking. We could potentially have the best hand under those circumstances, or perhaps we can steal the pot down the line if we're up against ace-king. I call one time to see what develops. All we can really do is make the best decision on every street without getting too far ahead of ourselves. The turn is a 6 of clubs. The flush draw gets there. I check because if this is awful for us, maybe it isn't quite as bad as I think because the opponent checks back. With this new information, I'm going to rule out the opponent having all 2 pair of better hands at this point. He would have bet more on the flop with Jack 10 or a set, and almost certainly would have bet the turn if he made a flush. If he has a 1-pair hand like pocket kings, he should be mortified that we have a flush, particularly if he isn't holding a club. He should also be very worried that we'll have either a set of jiggities or 10s. This has gone from a situation that I really don't like to one that could possibly be okay for us. The river is the 5 of spades. It's a blank. The hand that's most plausible that I put the opponent on is either ace-queen or ace-king. We can't beat either of those. We've got one of the worst hands that we'll ever have, but we could reasonably rep a flush, perhaps a set, or even an overpair that we play this way up until now. I want to put hands as good as aces or kings in a tough spot. I make nearly a pot-sized bet at 350. The middle position player started the war with its river bluff in the previous hand, then followed up with a 3-bet over our early position raise. We won the first battle. All that profit and then some will be erased if we get called here though. All we can do is wait. The opponent shows pocket 9s. He's got us beat if he can find the call. He doesn't. He he folds.
Alright, we got that one too. What did you have?
Stings me too.
What did you show? Pocket nines.
Alfonso's a good sport. I personally prefer to call pre-flop rather than 3-bet most of the time with nines over an early position raise, but there's some merit to taking a more aggressive approach, especially if it got me to fold a hand as good as ace-queen offsuit. It ends up backfiring for him as we make a move to steal the pot. Almost 2 hours go by and we pick up pocket aces at our fourth table of the session. We're in middle position and raised to 15. The big blind is one of the older viewers at today's meetup game, but perhaps he took offense to a joke I made about Ashley Simpson being a big disappointment in a vlog back in May because he puts in a 3-bet to 45. Can't really think of any other reason that he'd be 3-betting me right now. The big blind is in for a rude awakening as I give him a few pieces of me and 4-bet to 125. That's not enough to keep out the opponent, which I'm glad to see. He calls for 80 more. We're heads up in position. The flop comes ace-8-7 with 2 diamonds. We've got top set and a 4-bet pot. As happy as I am to see it, it'll be really tough for us to make additional money since 75% of the aces are accounted for. I doubt the opponent 3-bet, then called a 4-bet with 2 lower diamonds for a flush draw, pocket 8s or pocket 7s either. It's sort of too good of a flop. On second thought, maybe that's not the case. The opponent takes it upon himself to lead into us for 160. What on earth is going on here? We received a Christmas gift early that we don't want to ruin. There's almost no way that this guy has anything that isn't drawing close to dead. I call in order to complete the second part of getting this trap ready that the big blind is attempting to set for himself. It's really a 2-man job, so I'm happy to lend a hand. The turn is the queen of clubs. The opponent has 775 left in his stack. I'm eagerly anticipating what he's going to do next because he's full of surprises. He doesn't disappoint.
I'm all in. You win.
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
So we gotta see a 5th card for a high hand.
We gotta
I
see a
told
5th
myself,
card.
don't get on the blog for the wrong reason. What did I do?
I've never seen anyone overbet jam on the turn, then muck their cards face down before the river comes out. That's a first for me. To see if I qualify for the high hand, the dealer puts out the queen of diamonds on the river to give us a full house. The current high hand is quad 7, so we aren't able to win that. We do win the opponent's whole stack though. It's a massive pot for this game that goes our way. The opponent would later tell me he made his ambitious play against us with pocket 9s. We're up 1700 and we're just getting started. At our 5th table, we pick up ace-8 offsuit in the cutoff. It's the first hand after taking a short break. Rather than pay the missed blinds, I straddled for 10. The small blind calls, the big blind calls for 5 more. Under the gun +1 limps in. The hijack calls as well. I check. We're going 5 ways to the flop in position. The dealer puts out ace-8-3 rainbow. We've got top 2 pair with multiple opponents. Checks to me, we're certainly going to be betting. I make it 30. Some players still think that they've got a shot against us. The small blind and big blind call. I'm glad we've got some customers. Under the gun +1 and the hijack fold. It's down to 3 of us. The turn is the 4 of hearts, putting 2 hearts out there. It's not very concerning, given that we have the ace of hearts. The small blind is too impatient to allow me to bet. He leads for 45. It seems to be a common play out here in Florida. The big blind calls. A very interesting situation has developed. Small blind has 430 total. I'd like to absorb his stack into mine. I raised to 175. A tiny part of me is worried that we're up against a set of 3s, but mostly I'm feeling pretty good, at least until the small blind rips it in to see if we want to play for all of it. The big blind folds. We're going nowhere for 255 more. We call. We're involved in a big all-in pot. It's down to heads up. The river is the 9 of diamonds. It shouldn't have changed anything. The opponent has to show first since he's the one who went all in initially. He reveals that he has ace-5 offsuit. We've got the winner with our 2 pair against the opponent's top pair and missed straight draw. This is the best that we've run in a while. We're getting the right hands against the right opponents at the right times with the right dealers like this guy George, who's a viewer of the vlog. The day couldn't be going too much better than this. Then a player named Moses comes over to give me this awesome gift that he made out of resin. If you're interested in purchasing one for yourself or maybe for someone else as a gift, you can go to creationgenie.com, which is Moses' own site. Right after, a viewer named Craig gives me a share of challenge coin. I always appreciate it when people who are attending the meetup games give me things, like all of their chips when we have a set of aces. Shortly after, we've got Jack 5 suited in a 9-handed $15 bomb pot. The flop comes Queen Jack 5 rainbow. We've got bottom 2 pair. I bet 40. The hijack calls. The button also calls. We're probably up against a hand like a straight draw or a pair of queens. We don't want to see any ace, king, queen 10, or 8 on the turn. Probably the best card that we could see is the Jack of Spades, giving us the full house with Motown. The only issue now is that If one or both opponents have a straight draw, they could be drawing dead and won't want to put a whole lot of money in on this street. I keep it affordable with about an 85. If you have a hand like King 10, you can't really fold for that amount. If the hijack calls, the button is beginning to suspect that he could be in big trouble. He folds, it's down to heads up. The river is the 7 of diamonds. I consider checking to induce a bluff in case the opponent has air. Instead, I go for the home run and bet 400 to potentially get calls out of a hand like aces, kings, or ace-queen. I'm hoping that our sizing will look like I'm trying to buy it, and maybe I miss a straight draw myself. The hijack folds, the other opponents at the table are hoping that we were bluffing, but we weren't.
King 10 one time, come on.
Ooh, he did the boat.
I was hoping he had King 10. King 10. I almost checked because I thought that was like the most likely hand you had. But all right.
Beautiful.
In the previous vlog of the cruise session, I felt like no matter what I couldn't win. Today it's the exact opposite. With the cards we're getting and the situations we found ourselves in, it feels like we can't lose.